I don't think that the president should have tweeted that video that he tweeted, but I don't think he should have done that. I think that by endangering Congresswoman Omar, he was playing with this line.
Well, I disagree. She endangered herself, okay? That's not endangerment. So showing the truth is endangerment, is inciting violence to show the truth. That is fascism.
This is the perfect snapshot of where America stands right now. One side shouting about democracy, the other actually defending it. What you just saw isn't a debate. It's control disguised as civility. A citizen stands up, speaks his mind, and suddenly that freedom they all claim to love becomes dangerous. You and I know what that means. Free speech is only free until it challenges their narrative. Then the mics get cut, the crowd gets stirred, and the tolerance crowd turns hostile. But here's the truth. Patriots don't back down when they're silenced. They double down. Because this isn't about politics anymore, it's about principle. The right to speak your mind without permission slips from the government or applause from the mob. That's what separates courage from conformity. One man, standing up, reminded them that liberty doesn't bend to feelings or fear. It stands on truth. And that's exactly why they panic when someone actually uses it.
I think at the bedrock of what you're discussing is freedom of speech,
right,
and the freedom of expression.
Right.
And that is what I would call it.
Yes.
I think that we have a freedom to express ourselves.
And there it is, the classic move. Talk about freedom, just long enough to sound reasonable, then twist it until it only applies to yourself. That's the left's favorite trick. Use the language of liberty to justify control. You see, when AOC says freedom of speech, she doesn't mean your freedom. She means hers. She'll defend speech that flatters her worldview but label everything else as hate, misinformation, or dangerous rhetoric. That's not protection of rights. That's a monopoly on expression. And the irony is painful. The same people who built their brand on speaking truth to power now use power to silence truth. It's the oldest play in the book, disguise censorship as compassion. But Americans are catching on. Real freedom isn't selective, and it doesn't need approval from politicians to exist.
But we should also know that in the United States, there are also limitations on our freedom of speech.
No, only if it involves violence or threats, things that are illegal. But that's not free speech.
And so,
that's threat. Threats are not free speech.
So, and also, beyond violence or threats.
I don't think you should say that, because that's confusing the issue.
Well, sir.
Exactly. That's the beauty of clarity rooted in principle. No spin, no emotional gymnastics, just the plain language of the Constitution. If it isn't a direct, imminent threat of violence, it's protected. End of story. And notice what happens when truth enters the room. Discomfort. She's not squirming because he's wrong. She's squirming because he's right. And that exposes the weakness in her argument. The left thrives on redefining terms, moving the goalposts, making you doubt what freedom even means. But the First Amendment doesn't bend to feelings or polls. This man just reminded everyone that truth doesn't need a trigger warning. It just needs courage. And that's exactly what makes her so uneasy. The reminder that freedom isn't hers to control, it's ours to defend.
Prison. I think I just want to introduce some nuance to the conversation. That's okay. So I just want to throw some nuance into the conversation, and I'm not trying to have an argument here. I want to have a discussion. Oh, that's fine, sir. I am absolutely, sir. And I'm absolutely open to being proven wrong on many issues. So when it comes, I'll just let you know my perspective. We can disagree at the end of it, but I want to at least let you know my perspective. My perspective is that we absolutely have a protected freedom of speech. Someone can say, I hate so-and-so, and that is protected speech.
And just like that, the mask slips. The moment the argument turns logical and unshakable, they reach for the mute button. No shouting, no chaos, just truth they can't refute. So they do what authoritarians always do when they lose control of the narrative: they silence it. This is the modern definition of tolerance. Smile for the cameras while crushing dissent. Preach our democracy while punishing disagreement. They say they're protecting civility, but what they're really protecting is power. And AOC's silence in that moment says everything. She doesn't need to give the order. Her team already knows when to pull the plug. That's not democracy, that's stage management. And the American people are starting to see it for what it is: censorship dressed up as virtue.
When we think about one of the landmark freedom of speech cases brought down by the Supreme Court, one of those cases and one of the verdicts said another form of speech that is not protected is yelling fire in a crowded movie theater, because that will force people to trample one another. And so that's not protected speech.
Exactly. And this is where the manipulation becomes crystal clear. The fire in a crowded theater line has become the go-to excuse for every politician who wants to justify censorship without admitting it. It sounds smart. It feels legal. But it's a complete distortion of the case and of free speech itself. That phrase wasn't meant to muzzle political dissent. It was about stopping immediate physical danger. AOC knows that. She's too educated not to. Yet she uses it anyway, because it gives moral cover to silence viewpoints she finds inconvenient. It's the same playbook every time. Take a principle meant to protect liberty and twist it into a tool for control. And comparing a factual political video to shouting fire in a theater? That's not just dishonest. It's deliberate gaslighting. It's how they equate discomfort with danger, disagreement with hate. But the First Amendment isn't here to protect popular speech. It's here to protect the speech they want to erase.
If there's a fire, right. Right, sir, but he's saying, in the landmark speech, no, sir, it's fine. Oh, sir, no, it's...
Exactly. And this is where the manipulation becomes crystal clear. The fire in a crowded theater line has become the go-to excuse for every politician who wants to justify censorship without admitting it. It sounds smart. It feels legal. But it's a complete distortion of the case and of free speech itself. That phrase wasn't meant to muzzle political dissent. It was about stopping immediate physical danger. AOC knows that. She's too educated not to. Yet she uses it anyway, because it gives moral cover to silence viewpoints she finds inconvenient. It's the same playbook every time. Take a principle meant to protect liberty and twist it into a tool for control. And comparing a factual political video to shouting fire in a theater? That's not just dishonest. It's deliberate gaslighting. It's how they equate discomfort with danger, disagreement with hate. But the First Amendment isn't here to protect popular speech. It's here to protect the speech they want to erase.
Very much.
No, that's totally fine. For me, I think... And so I think for me, sir, it's my concern is we have freedom to say, I hate this, I hate that. Where I do get concerned is where that line is played with so that we have plausible deniability to incite violence against people. I don't think that the president should have tweeted that video that he tweeted. Do I think he should have gone to jail for it? Absolutely not. But I don't think he should have done that. I think that by endangering Congresswoman Omar, he was playing with this line. And
well, I disagree. She endangered herself, okay? That's not endangerment. By showing the truth. So showing the truth is endangerment, is inciting violence to show the truth. That is fascism.
He nailed it, plain and simple. Fascism isn't about angry slogans or flags. It's about control. It's when those in power, whether through government, media, or corporate muscle, decide who gets to speak and who gets silenced. And that's exactly what just happened in front of everyone's eyes. They love to throw around the word fascist like it only applies to the right. But here's the uncomfortable truth. When you use institutional authority to suppress political dissent, when you shut down citizens for asking questions, that's textbook authoritarianism. That's what real fascism looks like, right? And it's coming from the people who claim to be fighting it. This man wasn't being extreme. He was defending freedom, and that's the real threat to them. Not violence, not chaos, but the sound of truth they can't control.
Well, sir, I don't think anyone's trying to ban that speech.
His right to show the truth of what happened is just as valid as her right to say whatever she wants to say.
And sir, that's why he's not being, that's why there's no charges being brought up against him.
Being criticized by you as though there should be charges.
No, I don't think there should be charges. I want to make sure
that you say he's inciting violence against her.
I think he is.
That's absurd. You cannot incite violence.
Yeah, well, I think he is.
Inciting violence is illegal.
Right. And so okay, and sir, I think one of the larger questions that we have here is that if we're explicitly talking about, do we have the right to say, I hate so-and-so, I hate this?
That's the entire game. Redefine words until truth itself becomes a threat. Plausible deniability, dangerous rhetoric, stochastic terrorism. None of these phrases mean anything in legal terms. They're political inventions designed to give censorship a moral disguise. When they can't refute the argument, they just criminalize the conversation. That's the new frontier of control, using emotion to override law. Notice what she's really mad about here. Not lies, not manipulation, but exposure. Trump didn't fabricate anything. He played a clip of Ilhan Omar's own words. That's what triggered this meltdown. Think about the irony. They scream about misinformation, but when you show them unedited footage, suddenly it's incitement. That's how you know it's never been about safety. It's about power. The left's new rule book says truth is hate speech and disagreement is violence. But here's the problem for them. Truth doesn't vanish when you censor it. It spreads. The more they silence, the louder reality gets.
You even have the right, yes, to be bigoted in America. Absolutely. You absolutely have the right to be bigoted in America.
Right.
My question is, why do you want to, not you, but why would one want to be bigoted in America?
It doesn't matter. I don't want to be bigoted. I grew up as a conservative Christian.
That's the deflection playbook. When you can't win on logic, you shift the terrain from principle to morality. She couldn't refute his constitutional argument, so she reframed it as a character issue. Why would you want to be a bigot? It's emotional manipulation, not debate. But here's the truth. The Constitution doesn't care about your feelings. It protects your rights, even and especially when your speech is unpopular. That's the entire point of the First Amendment. It's not there to guard applause. It's there to guard dissent. What AOC did here is what the left always does. They equate speech with virtue. If you say something they dislike, you're not just wrong. You're immoral. That's how they justify censorship. They convince people that silencing you is an act of moral courage. But free speech isn't about kindness. It's about liberty. It's about ensuring that no one, not a politician, not a mob, not a bureaucrat, decides what's acceptable to say. And the moment we start confusing what's offensive with what's illegal, we hand over our freedom to the loudest accuser in the room.
But I'm telling you that the greatest freedom is for us to allow anyone who wants to hate without violence, without threats, without incitement, and that is true.
That is true.
You're bringing incitement and hate speech together, which is totally absurd and fascist.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thank you, sir. Thank you.
He's the only one in that room standing on principle. He wasn't emotional. He wasn't aggressive. He was factual, clear and rooted in the very document that defines this country. And yet, instead of engaging with the argument, she moved the goalposts, turning speech into violence, debate into danger. That's the modern sleight of hand. Redefine harm until disagreement becomes an offense. If words can be labeled violence, then censorship becomes protection. And that's how freedom dies. Not with a law, but with language twisted into a weapon. This man wasn't defending hate. He was defending the line between free expression and government control, the exact line that keeps power in check. And the fact that he did it calmly while being shouted down and silenced makes it even more powerful. He didn't just make a point. He made a statement that the First Amendment still matters, and it's worth standing up for even when it's uncomfortable. That's what courage looks like in the modern political arena.
A moment like that is fine and it's acceptable, because I do think that if we don't let it out, then it gets worse. So I think it's fine to air out to air out disagreements and to have these conversations, even if it hurts our feelings.
That right there is the entire story in one clip. Power pretending to be virtue. She silences him, insults him, dodges the question, and then acts gracious once the cameras cool down. It's the arrogance of people who think freedom belongs to them, not to all of us. And you nailed it. This wasn't just about AOC. It's about a movement that treats dissent as a threat and free speech as a privilege. The same politicians who owe everything to America's liberties now see those liberties as inconvenient. They claim to defend democracy, but only the kind that votes their way. That's why this man's stand matters. He didn't have a microphone, a staff, or a media machine, just conviction. And that's all it takes to expose hypocrisy this big. When truth meets power, the reaction always tells you who's really afraid. What AOC and her allies showed here wasn't strength. It was fragility disguised as compassion. They can't defend their ideas, so they police yours. And that's exactly why the fight for free speech isn't abstract anymore. It's right here, in moments like this, where one American refuses to kneel to narrative.